Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. Castle Somber. This awesome story is written by dlschindler. I know now, this is who I really am inside. I finally found myself. 30 Seconds to Mars. The Kill. Love is more frightening than death, and I aim to show you. Grandfather Willow kept the grounds and the words that whispered in the silence of Castle Somber's halls. He stared roomily at the refurbished castle. You run along and play, my little ones. There will be so much for you to tell me upon the morrow. The black orb eyes of his dark young blinked in delight. Then as shadows they sought the meaning of fear, shifting and growing, shrinking and changing. They left their cottage as the sun set. Grandfather Willow sat and rested. He had worked hard to get everything ready for 39 guests, the most that the castle had known at once, in over 1,000 years. These were no ordinary guests. For hours they arrived one by one, shuttled by the cattle's driver, Dario. Dario wasn't used to so much work, but loved his job and did it with a silent smile. Grandfather Willow just watched from the shade of the towers where his cottage sat amid the grounds of the castle's estate. Each of them was hand-picked long ago. All of them were talented and dedicated storytellers. Each could speak their stories even from a young age. Now they were all grown up, and they had never met each other. Originally there were more, but these were all that were left. They were very special guests. They were the weavers of the webs of horror. Anyone could tell a ghost story, but only these ones could bring it to life. Whatever they wrote and said became real. Somewhere, somehow, at least in the memories of those who knew their stories. These were this era's monster makers, the chosen ones. Not by any hallowed hand, the devil in the castle had plans. After the last of the guests had arrived, a storm began to grow off in the distance. The old groundskeeper retired for the evening to have a fire and a good reading session from an old book. He considered as he did this that it was unlikely any of them had met, even as they now shared a roof. The plan was to have Faustus, the butler, escort each of them to their assigned room, after collecting invitations. All except one had brought their gold-embroidered invitation to the castle and handed it over. The front was in black velvet papyrus and read in glowing ink, "Slumber Party, no sleep." They had only seen the household halls of the castle and none of the dungeons, battlements, chapel and other attractions. Faustus knew they wouldn't stay in their rooms for long, so had asked each of them to wait until it was time for dinner. They were to arrive in the great dining hall and enter upon their announcement from Faustus for their host. The first guest in order of arrival at the castle stopped as Faustus announced him. "Lucid Lupus!" The man went and sat down. His skeletal grin was pleasant to the host. Chardin sat with his massive black cloak and terrified curled horns. His bright red flesh reflected the candlelight all around. He spoke to Lucid Lupus, saying,
"Welcome, son of horror. I was not surprised that you were the first to arrive. It pleased me that you waited quietly in your room. Your siblings followed your example. Now I can have each of them come in, one by one, and you will all see each other for the first time."
Chardin's deep devil voice smiled. "Miss Creepy Tales!" was announced, and she looked around at all the empty seats. She saw Lucid Lupus and went and sat next to him. "I'm Lucid," he introduced himself politely. "Deadly Zone!" Faustius introduced a man who had worked out a lot and had built a body. He waved to Miss Creepytails and Lucius and sat across from them. They had no idea who he was.
"I think you might be more ripped than me."
Shadan flexed his huge red devil muscles, trying to prompt Devil Zone to do the same. He did, showing that he was indeed more buff than their devilish host. "Moschino!" was announced, and another muscular man entered. He wore a jacket and a mask, covering himself. Miss Creepytails jumped up and ran around the table to him. "Father! At last I meet my real father!" She hugged him tearfully. He gave her a kind of patting hug back, and she let go. Her real father had to sit next to Miss Creepytails. She had a very positive aura glowing off of her magic kit. The candlelight seemed dim. "The Baron!" Faustius stepped aside as a ghastly creature wearing a sword shambled in. "Madame Frightmare!" Faustius was still standing aside as another armed guest entered. She had a crossbow and a lantern. "Lady Nevermore!" Faustius did a flourish for her because she stopped and looked at him like he had addressed her. Then he held her seat for her while she found her spot next to Lucid Lupus. "Mermaid Devil, Jar 19, and Banshee Bar!" Faustius turned around and announced the next three guests as two of them walked in. Mermaid Devil was carrying Jar 19. The narrator was actually some kind of creature in a green glowing capsule. "Gothic Rose!" Faustius let in a tall, dark and delicate looking maiden. "The Lizard Queen!" A mysterious and charming woman lit the room up further with her ardent smile and gaze. Everyone who was already seated found her to be very beautiful. "Wolf's Campfire!" Faustius cringed aside as a young man with a wolf entered. Half of his face was a wolf's mask. His eyes flickered a golden colour like that of a wolf in the candlelight. "Madame Raven!" was announced next, and she went and sat next to Lizard Queen. She was incredibly mysterious and somehow darkened the room a little bit. "Myuu!" Faustius said, and for her he smiled as he announced her. Myuu floated in and found a seat. Everyone felt warm and happy inside, although maybe one among the gathered guests did not want to feel warm and happy inside at that moment. "Curious Raven and the Gothic Librarian!" Faustius sounded impressed. They were holding hands and sat next to each other, fast friends. "Mistress Horror!" Faustius introduced the next guest. Suddenly, Shadan said,
"Alright, I am getting very hungry. Just go ahead and let the rest in."
Shadan ended his command with a growl. "Left on red, As the Raven Dreams, Slaughterhouse, Spooky Spaghetti, Boobo Boobo, Silver Dorkable, April Tapes, Mad Chatter, Amateur Animator, Beautiful Nightmare, Vidith 22, Gamma Akatubi, Disturbed K, Cryptids Roost, Your Ex-Husband, Hood Horror, Wraith, Silver Threads, and Fredigran." Faustius announced everyone else as they entered and found somewhere to sit. "What about me?" someone asked from the entrance to the Great Hall. Mad Chatter looked around and guessed who it probably was. "Lone Wolf!" Mad Chatter had a seat for the second to last guest. "And last but not least," Faustius held everyone's attention, "Lady Spookeria." This drew a round of applause from the most of the dinner guests. A few of them didn't know who she was or felt like applauding. She took the last seat at Shadan's right, across from Lady Nevermore. "Are you going to wear the mask the entire time?" Lady Spookaria looked to where Miss Creepytails was holding on to her real father's arm as he sat next to her. Miss Creepytails was grinning. "I might," Moschino said. He is my dad, Miss Creepytails exclaimed happily.
We are all family here,
Shadan told everyone.
Welcome home. Stay and be my guests for 3 nights. Make yourselves comfortable and have the time of your lives with each other. This is all you get.
Kinda ominous, the Baron laughed. Yeah, you gonna kill us all off one by one? Wraith guessed.
No, you are my guests. You will be consumed by your own fears if they are great enough to consume you. Otherwise, each of you will consume your own fears instead. That will be the course of thy meals. You shall feed on fear, or it shall feed on you.
Shadan explained the rules. I knew it. Wraith sat back. He'd known this was no vacation or family reunion. Wait, you aren't going to feed us? Your ex-husband demanded to know, on behalf of everyone. There was murmuring in agreement that it had sounded this way.
I told you what you will feed upon,
Shadan repeated himself. He was patient, as though he was already eating something.
Fear.
Hey, you can't just not feed us, Silverthreads pointed out. I am hypoglycemic. I have to eat something, April Tapes protested. Yeah, I don't want to fast for 3 days either. Amateur Animator sat next to April Tapes and agreed. If I had known you weren't going to feed us, I would have brought in some catering to this place, Hood Horror promised. Bro, I thought you were cool. Deadly Zone shook his head. You invited us all here just to torture us with hunger and fear and what? And we're all going to die too? As the Raven Dreams questioned. I'm not trying to die here. This was supposed to be fun. Myuu wasn't feeling amused anymore.
Most of you will probably succumb to your fears. I can see you were not ready for this. Now it is too late.
Shadan stood up and walked out to the great dining hall, into the mural of hell that had stood darkened behind his seat. Now they saw that he was seated there, watching them. We have to escape from here, the Baron advised everyone. That probably isn't an option, Jar 19 antagonized him. We should still try. We don't know it is futile, Gamma Akatubi argued with the jar. Everyone either decided it would be best to try to escape or best not to bother. Because the Baron had suggested it, he was nominated the person to lead the escape effort. Even though about half of the guests agreed an escape attempt should be made, very few volunteered. Only Gamma Akatubi and Madame Frightmare were willing to try. Everyone wished them luck and the escape party headed back towards the entrance to the castle. What is the plan? Are we going to try each way out of here? Madame Frightmare asked. She had loaded her crossbow. Let's just check and see if we can leave out the way we came in. How do we know unless we try? The Baron concluded. He had drawn his sword. That doesn't seem like a plan. Gamma Akatubi held back. The other 2 narrators continued walking with their weapons ready in case of monsters. Suddenly they both froze like that. Guys! Gamma Akatubi came running back to the great dining hall. They got turned to statues. What? Lucid Lupus realised. He rushed out to see what had happened, followed by everyone else. Indeed, as they tried to leave, they had shown fear and become permanent fixtures in the castle. At least that was the sum of everyone's thoughts. If they died because of the fear of staying here, then never mind their courage for trying to escape, Lone Wolf pointed out. You can't crack the logic of it, Slaughterhouse objected. It will make your head explode if you try to understand it. An evil castle that kills horror narrators. It will just keep changing the rules to be scary. He is right. I've read stories like this before, Lady Spookeria agreed. Yeah, Slaughterhouse smiled for everyone, then his head exploded. Bits of his brains and eyes and teeth and skull flew everywhere and landed on everyone that was still alive. This sent them backing away, running, screaming, cowering, staring in terror, or Fredegran, who had out his notebook and was writing something down real quick. "Oh dear heavens!" Myuu saw Fredegran get eaten alive by his notebook. The blood-soaked pages crumpled to the ground. All around was chaos as the guests fled in terror. There was nowhere to escape. They ended up scattered and wandering the dark halls of the castle alone. Fear seeped out of every angle. Some were alone and others had formed small groups. Everyone was just trying to survive the first night. As the sun rose over the courtyard, the guests began to gather there. "It's just the first day." Lady Spookeria looked like she had cried, with dark tear streaks on her cheeks. Everyone was very quiet and tired. It was chilly out and the guests all ended up huddled together as the sun rose. Even though many of them had wandered the darkness alone, there was a sense of togetherness as they faced the first dawn. Miss Creepytails handed out some of her magic glowing candy for everyone who needed some sugar. There wasn't any coffee or alcohol and a lot of the narrators were grumpy, but knowing what their friends had just survived, everyone was pleasant with each other. Anyone could die horribly at any moment. "I'm going to find the kitchen to this place. There has to be some food." Hood Horror got up, stretched. Deadly Zone, Moschino, Silverthreads and Amateur Animator all volunteered to go with him back into the darkness of the castle. "Hang in there, buddy," Amateur Animator told April Tapes, who was shaking a little bit already. "We're going to find some food." "Holy ghosts!" Hood Horror stopped inside. The other men stopped behind him. In front of them stood the ghosts of their friends, recently killed by the castle. Madame Frightmare's ghost and the others were trying to warn them. It was like they were on mute. Nobody could hear the dead narrators. The breakfast brigade shuffled past the ghosts and found the next hall. A tattered tapestry hung that was moving slightly like there was a breeze. "I'm scared. Something's wrong." Amateur Animator stopped walking boldly into the castle. The tattered tapestry showed images of the same men walking into the hall carrying silver platters heaped in cornucopias and stuffed pig. Seated were lovely ladies smiling with perfectly straight white teeth. It looked very healthy and refreshing. "That's weird. How are we in the tapestry about to serve breakfast to some ladies?" Silverthreads pointed out. Suddenly, female zombies emerged from behind the tattered tapestry. They resembled the ladies in the tapestry, only these were their undead counterparts. Amateur Animator screamed and fled while the others were ravenously eaten alive in the feeding frenzy. He got back to everyone else, breathing heavily. He had to catch his breath before he could tell them that the castle was now infested with zombies. Fear crept over everyone's faces. "Zombies! We need to get weapons. We can destroy their brains to kill them." Lady Spookeria got up and organised everyone. "Some of you stay here and keep that door to the castle closed so they can't get out that way. The rest of you come with me to go find some battle axes or something." Miss Creepytails ran over and grabbed Amateur Animator. "My dad was in there. Did you see what happened?" Her eyes watered. She knew her dad had gotten eaten by zombies. "Sorry, kid," Amateur Animator hugged her. "The zombies got him. I'm so sorry." He suddenly couldn't feel any more afraid. Seeing someone he cared about hurting so bad just made him angry instead. He let go his hug and walked away sobbing quietly. She heard the ignition sound effect of something bursting into flames, like when the gas gets turned on. Miss Creepytails turned around and saw that Amateur Animator had burst into flames, had spontaneously combusted. Within seconds, he was reduced to ash. "No!" Miss Creepytails cried out dramatically, shaking her fists at the diabolical castle. Everyone that was either barricading the courtyard or heading towards the tower with the armoury looked in time to see Miss Creepytails sink into the ground like it was quicksand. Lady Spookeria and Wolf's Campfire were the quickest to try and save her. As they rushed to her, she just sank faster so they couldn't get to her in time. The ground she had sunk into was solid again, leaving only her pointed hat behind. They tried to dig her out, but the ground was literally solid. Not even Wolf's Campfire's wolf could dig into the packed dirt. "We need shovels! Get her out of there!" Lady Spookeria was shouting for help. She couldn't accept that the castle had taken Miss Creepytails. "We still need weapons," Mermaid Devil reminded the armory dispatch. They left Lady Spookeria in the courtyard. They reached the tower with the armory and went in. There were some prop weapons in there, one of each style. They were fantasy forged and could still deliver a lethal blow, even if they weren't entirely battle-worthy. "Get those shields too." Your ex-husband had an armload of pole arms of each variety. Wraith made a crude sled for the shields and towed them back to the courtyard. The weapons and shields were distributed and traded until everyone had something they thought they could use. But the zombies had vanished, leaving only the ripped tapestry and bloodstains. It was getting dark outside already. "The second night," Lady Spookeria told everyone. "We must be very careful. The castle will try to kill as many as it can without letting us figure out its rules." "Guys, I don't think I'm going to make it." April Tapes looked pale. "I'm going to get you some water," as the Raven Dreams told him, and left everyone to do so. They heard a scream in the darkened hallway, followed by the sound of clown laughter and chainsaws, and more screaming, as the Raven Dreams had gotten murdered by the castle while bravely going to fetch water for April Tapes. Everyone was stiff and trembling in fear at the death sounds. Only one corridor was illuminated. Curious Raven and the Gothic librarian shook off the effect of hearing their friend getting murdered horribly by the castle and tried to escape down that corridor. It turned into a hall of mirrors, a maze, and yet they refused to let go of each other. They died as the castle shattered the walls around them. Even as they were neatly sliced into confetti by the exploding shards, they never let go. Only the breaking glass sound echoed from their deaths. "I really hate this place," the Lizard Queen decided. Everyone murmured in agreement. Castle Somber was not very much fun. It was just killing them all off, and seemed to be making up the rules as it went. She stood up and left the terrified huddle of narrators and writers. She headed for the great dining hall alone, and when she got there she looked at the mural of hell and said, "I am not scared of you." She turned to go, but there was no way out. She tried to say more to the mural, but found she could not make a sound. She was trapped in a sealed chamber somewhere in the castle, and it grew dark. A shaft of light illuminated an old typewriter with a neat stack of blank paper next to it. She wanted to scream in defiance of this horror, but could not. All she could do was sit at it and began to type about the horror of being forever trapped there like that. "We have to go find her." Your ex-husband had watched her go and told the others. A search party was organised to go and try to find the Lizard Queen. Lucid Lupus, Lady Spookeria, Wolf's Campfire, Madame Raven, Myuu and Wraith all volunteered to search for their missing friend. They left the others behind and went into the dark corridors of the castle's dungeons, following the way she had gone. In the darkness they got separated and lost, one by one, until each of them was alone down in the dungeons of the castle. The dark young of Grandfather Willow followed them down there as the sun rose above. They would have all day with these narrators and writers to feast upon the horrors of their imaginations before the final night with the rest. The guests in the castle above could hear the echoing screams of the search party. Some cried, others passed out, and some could tolerate the anguish of their friends less than their own terror. "I'm going down there to try to rescue them," Gothic Rose told the others. If a delicate and dark beauty like her had the courage to storm the dungeons, and so did others. Disturbed K, Beautiful Nightmare, Mistress Horror, Banshee Bar, Lady Nevermore and Spooky Spaghetti all got their daggers and flashlights and crosses and shields and followed her into the dungeon. As they went along, the torches lit their way. Suddenly they were surrounded by horrible looking mutants in cages on either side. The animal men leapt about crazily, and then suddenly the bars of the cages vanished. The beastmen rushed at the armed female narrators, and they defended themselves. They clubbed and stabbed at the creatures all around them, and one by one they each fell. Silver Dorkable caught up to them and found what had happened. In the darkness of a dusty and unlit corridor, they had stopped and stabbed and clubbed each other to death. She screamed in terror at the carnage and ran back to the others. "The castle made them kill each other," Silver Dorkable cried. She dropped the medieval mace she had, realising that anything she swung it at could be one of her friends. She leaned back against the wall, and ghastly hands reached for her and dragged her back into the dungeon. A ghastly hand was held over her mouth so she couldn't scream, and nobody saw it happen. She was kidnapped by the castle, quickly, right in front of everyone. The last of the guests huddled in absolute terror for the rest of the final night. As the sun began to rise the next morning, the great doors of the castle opened and sunlight poured in. Dario was waiting outside for them with their bags repacked off to one side. "We can go!" Gamma Akatubi got up and led the dishevelled survivors outside. John 19 was still sitting there as the doors closed behind them. Apparently it had booked an extended stay in Castle Somber. The other 7 survivors walked through the sunlight together. They followed Gamma Akatubi, who still called Shotgun, Left on Red, Boobo Boobo, Mad Chatter, Mermaid Devil, Vidith 22, Lone Wolf and Cryptids Roost had all survived. They got into the shuttle van while Dario put their things in the back. "I've still got my invitation. I'm going to keep it to remember for everyone who died what it was like to get invited here in the first place," Boobo Boobo told the others. Mad Chatter was crying. Everyone was, a little bit. As they were driven away and the sun was rising behind the castle, they looked back. All except Left on Red. She never looked upon such things. She knew better. Instead, she kept the smiles of her friends in her heart, refusing to let it go. Then Cryptids Roost said, "Where fear is, happiness is not." Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help to promote this channel more. And don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. I now have my very own subreddit community where you can submit any stories you've written. You can submit your stories or encounters either there or send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. All the links are below. I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit, and you'll also find me on Discord. If you would like to support this channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Again, that will also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.